A thief steals your baby. You pull out your phone and with trembling hands dial the police. Even though your head feels like it's about to pop like a balloon, the woman on the other end soothes your frayed nerves with a voice like melting ice, the kind that you leave on the counter and it gently slides off. She tells you to off and hangs up. The police have done their job. It is time to do yours, and there is very little time. In order to save your baby, you have to write 3 research papers to validate the hypothesis that your child might potentially have been kidnapped by someone. These papers should detail the preparation steps and experiment procedures to test the validity of 3 ideas as follows. The first study proposes the hypothesis that the perpetrator and the victim might be real, meaning the thief, the baby, and you as individuals objectively exist. The second paper shows which parts of their bodies and minds might represent their identities, then presents steps to possibly confirm this hypothesis. In the case it's the body, you should also detail which part of the body. Keep in mind that there are many rejected papers from parents of other victims, which have cited that entire bodies of the perpetrator and victims represent their identities, even though it is widely agreed upon that such is not the case. One particular paper has even gone as far as to posit that material possessions, like the baby's shoes or the thief's quote-unquote fine drip, should also be considered parts of their identities. We highly advise that you avoid common pitfalls such as these and choose the brain as the answer for this particular section in your research paper in order to increase the likelihood of receiving approval from the journal, which we will discuss in more detail at a later portion of this guide. If the core identities of the people related to the kidnapping are represented by the mind, the paper should elaborate on which part of consciousness they should be, such as thought and mental experiences. The paper should then proceed to explain how these mental phenomena directly correlate to the identification of the individual, which in this case would be the baby and the so-called alleged criminal. For example, if the author claims that the identification of the individual as mental phenomena uses a verbal thought, a mental image, an audio memory, and an emotion, which the paper should also show the means to quantify as in how much and in what form it exists, as case studies. It should prove definitively how these mental objects correspond to the identification of the individual and are not phenomena completely independent from the host. If a baby experiences a thought, and this proves his identity as an existent agent, it should subsequently be proven that this thought must not under any circumstances exist as something separate from its host. In other words, the thought itself must not in any way be considered an independent entity interacting with the person experiencing it as a mind phenomenon. The paper will also provide the means to confirm the existence of these self-identification mental phenomena and present at least 3 different ways to access them for future observations and analysis. Note that we do not accept presenting networks of electrical signals in the brain of the baby or the thief as evidence. You need to be able to prove how these brain circuits produce mental activities in these perceivers, and if so, how we can at all times and without fail locate, access, and interact with these mental phenomena firsthand to confirm their objective physical existence. We do not accept virtual computer-generated emulations of these experiences or any written allegories of personal memories that you may or may not have had with your child, as these are not considered empirical evidence and will be promptly rejected. The third and final paper investigates into whether the event of the abduction did in fact occur in space and time. In regard to space, note that we do not accept coordinates as evidence. The paper must show how the area can be located inside the universe in proper fashion. It is unacceptable to cite the locality in vague terms. A bad example would be writing that the location is downtown New York, United States of America, on Earth, inside the solar system, in the Milky Way galaxy, which is part of the Local Group, which is part of the Virgo supercluster, which is part of the Laniakea supercluster. This is a bad example because we need to know where the Laniakea supercluster is situated inside the physical universe. The paper should present the locality in a way that is applicable to everyone, regardless of your location in space. If a person is inside a supercluster that is 100,000 billion light-years away from the Laniakea supercluster, far beyond the perimeter of 93 billion light-years of the current model of the observable universe, that person should be able to tell where the abduction took place in relation to his or her own location. In the event that the physical universe is part of a 4-dimensional megastructure containing other universes, the paper should also, after proving the factuality of this hypothetical multiverse model, present ways ways to locate and access the place of the abduction in relation to the location of other physical universes. The same criteria also apply to time, as the use of our current model time and date, for example 3:30 p.m. January 12, 2025, will not be accepted. The paper should present ways to locate the point in time where the abduction took place. In the event that time had no beginning, the year of the abduction event could potentially be an infinitely large number, in which case the paper should then present ways to differentiate this date from any other future or past points in time, as hypothetically any year before or after the abduction would also be the same infinitely large number. Another effective way to confirm this hypothesis that the abduction did occur is to provide the CCTV footage of the abduction recorded by any of the security camera in the streets or venues in the vicinity. Of course, it is required that the paper must also cover extensively different methods to confirm that you, the baby and the kidnapper and the ones in the recorded footage are the same individuals. We do not accept propositions such as the appearances match or DNA profiles of the people in question were present at the crime scene. In the introduction chapter of all three papers, state clearly the context for your study and why it's important. Include a brief literature review to show previous research related to your hypotheses. Once finished, submit them to a reputable journal where they will undergo a peer review process, which can last up to 72 months. Once passed, the studies will be published, allowing a wider community to examine and critique the works, as well as reproduce the experiments in different settings and with changed variables. After a few years, as more studies replicate and support the findings, a consensus may form in the scientific community where some will accept the originally proposed hypothesis as truth. It is possible that the thief stole your baby. You will then receive an invitation letter to the journal's headquarters, where you will be given an opportunity to shake hands with all the present staff members, gathering at the water cooler machine in room 303 on the 3rd floor. The handshake symbolizes their approval of your work. It means they agree with the study. If the percentage of employees working on that floor who accept your handshake exceeds 30%, the journal will report to the police department and the investigation will begin. Congratulations. Even though your child is now a fully grown adult with a spouse and grandchildren and does not look like they need a rescue, you can finally reunite and spend quality time with your family again.